Hi, that's Jeff. I think it's Shima. I'm answering your. You made a post on LinkedIn about, um, you know, vernacular Egyptian Arabic, colloquially Egyptian Standard Arabic, and all that. And I've already made mention of in one video of mine about talking about Standard Middle Arabic and Universal Spanish, and then the dialectalization kind of dialects of them. And I want to focus this one more on specifically on the Arabic question, and I think it's really good. I think it's a really important one because it's so misunderstood. 25 years ago, when I was working at Carnegie Mellon, we were working on different automatic translation systems, and we were working on languages that would kind of be the difficult nuts to crack in the future, or were current ones, usually in a lot of communication challenged areas. So like Croatian and Bosnian back in the 1990s, and then Korean, and then Korean languages because of the kind of the large intervention of all kinds of NGOs and military to kind of work on crisis situations. And then we were looking at Arabic, and Arabic was going to be the next kind of challenge back in the 1990s. And one of the things in that 1040 window, it's called the 1040 because of the longitudinal latitudinal lines, is because of the huge number of dialects. I mean, if you basically go from Morocco over to Lebanon to the Emirates, you get a wide range of dialects, and the consonant clusters are kind of all the same, right? But the vowel points are all different. The vowels are different, and how you write them are different. And when we were developing translation speech to speech translation systems back in the 1990s. I mean, this is 25 years ago. Okay, so this is before I had gray hair, and it was a big challenge. And like French and Spanish, we were able to do it in one day because we found corpora, we found data to be able to do it, and we could pull together speech data and pull together text data, corpora, and build a system in a day for Spanish and Spanish. Now, Haitian Creole, it took me 2 years to create the data with colleagues. Croatian took about 2 years as well. Korean, we were able to throw something together about 4 months, 4 to 6 months, because of being intelligent how we set up the data and how we recorded the people and did it. But the Arabic was going to be a real tough cookie because of these dialects. And I'm talking speech, right? I'm not talking text. Now, we need to use text. We were doing speech to text and text to text and text to speech in one direction, English to Arabic. That was our goal. And then back from Arabic to English, right? Speech to text, text to text, text to speech. So you have all these different systems. And our first thing was we're going to say, well, what dialect of Arabic, what dialect of Arabic are we going to use? And we had a Fulbright scholar come, and I was at Carnegie Mellon, so we had a Fulbright scholar come, and he spent, I think, 3 months with us as we were trying to figure out which one we were going to do. And he was from Morocco, and I mean, he went through and did all the research, and that was kind of back in the times when it was kind of hard to find PhD and master's thesis on Middle Standard Arabic at the time, right? So now it's all over the place. Sorry, I get some kids screaming here, but I'm in a restaurant. That's the way it is. So, and the tough thing was choosing which dialect, because we would have to work with spoken. The focus was working on spoken Arabic to do a translation system. It wasn't about doing text to text. It wasn't about, there are companies that already worked, there are a couple of companies that already had developed, they were already developing and had developed Arabic translation systems for text, right? Standard Arabic. But we were working the speech part of it. Again, 1990s. That's a long time ago. And in the end, after 3 months of the feasibility study, we were just starting to do the feasibility study of what we're going to do. the choice was to go with Egyptian Arabic. That was the one. Now, of course, we're saying Egyptian Arabic, and now you've mentioned in your post that there's a wide variety of that, and we knew this. But we need to choose something, and it seemed that it would correspond most to what you hear in the radio and the TV, right? Closest to Middle Standard Arabic, and so be good to hear your thoughts about how does Egyptian. Of course, now we're saying Egyptian. I mean, there are lots of different varieties of it, right? But how does how does the group of dialects of Egyptian, how does it correspond to what we would call Middle Standard Arabic, right? That you hear in the TV and hear in the radio or in public broadcasts, or even video films, right? So that's kind of I think one of the challenging things, and a lot of people don't understand dialectology. I was dialectologist when I was studying master's degree, so that's what I worked on, started with. And dialectology is, I mean, everything's a dialect. Everything's a dialect. The language doesn't exist. And I made a special video here about what is a language, and I explained the difference between patois and dialects and language. And that in itself is a whole video, right? Or a whole book, or many books. But I think Arabic is a great example of a great challenge because of the heavy dialectalization. That's a hard word to say in English. The widespread of dialects across that window of that space of those countries, and how many versions of it is now, and how do people communicate between themselves, right? How do people in business communicate with others in business? How does someone from Lebanon communicate with someone in Morocco? Now, they might use French too, right? How does someone from the Emirates or Qatar, they'll communicate with someone from Tunisia? And how do they do it? And I'd be really interested because I'm working on I've been working on this the focus on how do we do about what about the differences between using a universal dialect, which here we could say it's Middle Standard Arabic, or versus the using specific dialects. And I've been looking at this for other languages where there are just heavily a lot of dialects to, like all the islands and the Creole languages. And can we create a universal French Creole? Could we do that for all the islands that are in the Pacific, or the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean? Could we do this? And kind of looking at this, and so kind of like to hear your thoughts about this. This again, this Middle Standard Arabic compared to Egyptian, what you might colloquial Egyptian, and it's all about voice, right? It's all about speech. Speech is the original language. Written text is just a way to communicate across borders and across remote locations and across places where you're not sitting there talking to each other, right? The phone systems, all the phone technology, telecom had improved our ability to communicate across locations, right? And then television made that possible with broadcasts, and then of course now Zoom and Google Meet and all those things allow us to speak and talk with others in real time. So and Skype and all these things, right? But how how do you see movies like Jukata talked about classical Egyptian in the movies, and what about dialectal? I can't. It's hard to darn that verb. Is that adjective? It's really hard to figure out. It's hard to say it, right? But how are these done how are these done like Disney movies? Which one do they choose for that? For Aladdin, for Arabic. What do they choose for these for these movies that are highly high volume movies, and which version is done, or do they do it to different dialects? It'd be really interesting to hear feedback on how that's done. Is it done in this middle standard Arabic or what? I'm really interested. So let me know. Let us all know. Thanks.